I think life is more spontaneous and more effortless, more creative, and one of peace, harmony, laughter, and love.
Uh-huh. So people aren't necessarily have all the powers or the siddhis or
The powers and siddhis are byproducts of it, but
a
yes.
realization that he could have fixed everything and
Right.
chose not to.
Yes, absolutely.
And
He was not into melodrama of any kind.
yeah.
He was into sobriety.
Okay, so my first question is, what's the power of the cities? Is that like Hetch Hetchy Reservoir is like the power for San Francisco? Is that what he's talking about?
The siddhis are considered psychic powers or spiritual powers. And the reason why I asked that question is because there's lots of stories in around India about people who have achieved enlightenment and that they have all these psychic powers, that they're able to do all these things. So probably in the past I've always connected, some people that are enlightenment can, they can make things move, they can make things appear, they can levitate, they can read people's minds. I always thought, well, if they're enlightened, they would have these powers. So that's why I asked Deepak about that. But basically, the yogic scriptures, specifically the Yoga Sutras, talk about they have all these powers, and they say if you do this, you can achieve this power. If you do this, you can achieve this power. But it says to be forewarned, because if you get caught up in these siddhis or powers, you basically can lose your way because they'll sidetrack you from looking at the ultimate truth. So he's saying, what Deepak says, well, it could be a byproduct of awakening, but they're really not. Really not what's not important in the whole thing.
Well, what I was thinking was that, like if you had the power to bring somebody back from the dead, right? Now, is that really a good thing to do?
Right.
And to me, I don't think it is, because I've always felt like everyone wants to live forever, but that really isn't a practical solution, because if you do that, then you have way overpopulation, and you have no one can have any kids because there's no room for them.
Good thought.
And so you may have these powers, but to use them would again throw us into chaos or into an imbalance.
Right, throw everything out of balance. It's really interesting that you would use that as an example, because that's one of the things that Buddha tried to do after he became awakened. He tried to he brought someone back to life. And so this is what I talked about, was that Buddha realized that he did have these powers, and he really had to look at what should I do with them. And that's what happened, where he just realized that people really need to wake up, not for him to fix everybody's lives.
Right, yeah. And then the other question was, why spontaneity? Why be spontaneous?
Well, it's interesting that of any of the qualities of an enlightened being, spontaneity would be the one that you would question. Because what happens is, in our normal everyday reality, the mind likes to control things. The mind likes to figure everything out. It likes to feel a sense of security, like it's going to know what's happened. But when awakening happens, we're in this state of beingness, in this state of where we just recognize that life just flows. And if we allow that space to happen, where we're not trying to make things always be the way that we think it should be, it allows some other force to sort of come in, some flow to come in, where things can happen when we never expected to happen. So it really allows a creative flow to make its way into our life.
Well, it kind of reminds me, because I play music, and they have what's called improvising in music. And that's basically, instead of playing a melody that's already written down, you just invent it as you play. And I've always felt that that's kind of more, spiritual, because you're allowing something to create this music instead of using yourself. It's sort of like letting powers come into you.
That's a perfect example of spontaneity, where there's an improvisation in music. The musician doesn't know what he's doing. The audience doesn't know what he's doing, and you can almost feel it when you're hearing someone improvise. You could almost feel the energy in the room, that there's this sort of excitement and expectation of you not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's what the awakened life can be like. You're sort of like, life is just sort of this, well, you never really know what's going to happen next, and whatever happens, it's okay. And there's a that sort of excitement that comes with it.
With the mystery of it.
Yeah, with the mystery of it, right.
So then, what does he mean, like he wasn't into melodrama?
Well, the melodrama, if he was really into the melodrama, then he would have ended up trying to fix everybody's life. And because what happens in our normal everyday reality, we're all caught up in our stories. You know, we have our story about this, we have our story about our life, and we have our story that happens. And that's sort of really, it's getting caught up in the drama of life. And eventually, after the Buddha had his awakening experience, after he awoke, he realized that it wasn't really about the stories. It wasn't listening to everybody's stories and trying to fix everybody's stories. It was really just about seeing life as it was. Just saying, life, it is what it is.
So it's not about going on this journey and having a happy ending at the end. It's about realizing that the way things are right now is the way things should be.
We could say that yes, that the way things are right now are the way that things should be, or we could drop the word should, and we could just say that life is
the way it is.
Life just is the way that it is, and that's the real truth. It just is what it is. So the next part of the interview I think is one of our favorite parts, and this is where Deepak talks about how life is just about embracing everything that happens.
Okay, here we go.
So he had this one shift after meditating for so long and doing all the austerities. He woke.
Yeah, he embraced everything. He accepted everything, including Mara, the demon, sent him his 3 daughters, and he said, "Come, I will marry."
So then, whatever life offers us, we allow it to be there.
Yeah, things don't seem to go our way. Give up your idea of how they should be, trusting you don't know the big picture, but the big picture is all infinitely correlated.